Hey, what's up guys, it's Graphic Phoenix back with another video today. And today we're going to be talking about Ackie monitor care, both red and yellow Ackie. Ackie monitors are amongst the best beginner monitors, as they offer a very interacting experience for all levels of keepers. This is achieved by their ease of handling and their outgoing personalities. From racing around their enclosure to leaping in the air during feeding time, it is surely an amazing experiment that never gets old. Their prehistoric appearance combined with their pleasant demeanor makes the Ackie monitor a very popular choice. With that being said, let's get started with the video. So after that brief description, we can get into the Ackie care. Now this is true for reds and yellows. I have a pair of reds. My buddy actually has a trio of yellows. This is Bowser right here. Stella, as you saw, is also down there. So in this video, we're going to cover general care, feeding, and enclosure. So let's get started. In the wild, Ackies are generally social creatures. They actually like to be in pairs or trios. They're much more of a social animal than a solitary animal. Right now I have Bowser and Stella separated. The reason why they're separate right now is to get Stella a bit of a break. While she was in with Bowser in the other cage I had, she was not doing so hot. Now she's back to 110%, and I'll probably be moving them together here coming up. Telling yellow Ackies apart from red Ackies are tough. My buddy has explained it to me briefly, but it has to do with the flecking on the bottom of their chin there, as well as on the inside of their arms. Yellow Ackies will tend to carry through that like circular pattern on their back, whereas red Ackies, as you saw briefly on Bowser there, have a like black spots. That's one of the primary differences of the characteristics between red Ackies versus yellow Ackies. It really sucks because it's hard to tell the difference. A lot of people say red Ackies are bigger, which is definitely true with my female. It's much bigger than the trio, like the two females out of the trio of yellows. But Bowser is like half the size of the male. Another tough thing to do as a beginner is actually determine their sex. As they're young, it's very, very hard. When they're fully mature, like my pair here, it's much easier, but still to the untrained eye, it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. You can see on Stella's head, as shown right now, it's much more slender and to a point. There's not as much girth, and it's also much longer than Bowser's. Bowser's note is much shorter and more like an arrowhead rather than a long point. Yeah, you can see there that it is not simply a long narrow head. It's much, much shorter and much more brutish. I don't know how else to say it other than that. From there we can move on to the enclosure, and I'm going to demonstrate that on Stella's cage because it's a little easier access. Essentially, for a pair or a trio, you want to have at least a 4x2x2, that's 4 feet long by 2 feet deep by 2 feet high enclosure for them, with a general substrate depth of 8 to 12 inches. Right now I'm sitting at about 6 inches, and then she has her lay box, which is 10 inches deep, so she does have enough digging space. Ackie monitors in general love to squeeze into very tight spaces, and they essentially inflate themselves to stay in. You can find, they're called something stacks. They're essentially planks of wood, like 2x4s with like 1x1 piece of wood in between, and the monitors will actually squeak into there and blow themselves up. Stella has a tendency to squeak in between her lay box there and the wall, which is very, 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 very thin, and she will stay in there all night. That's where she goes to bed, and she stays in there as long as she wants. So it is important to provide them with the space where they can feel comfortable and relax. That's the best place for them. I do plan on incorporating a wood stack, a rock stack, one of the two, whatever I decide to build, into this cage eventually in the near future. We move on to basking spots, which is an extremely, extremely important part of keeping Ackie monitors. They require a very, very hot basking spot of up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't provide quite that hot. Mine hits 115, 120, depending on how hot it is in my room. They require such a hot basking spot because you think about it, they are Australian monitors, and rocks in the Australian desert get very, very, very warm. They require that heat to metabolize their crickets and prey effectively, so that is certainly something to consider when purchasing an Ackie monitor. Make sure you have an area that you can provide a super hot basking spot for them. The topic of UVB is kind of debated in the monitor world. Now, I see it as they are outdoor monitors. They live in Australia, and they're probably exposed to sun and UVB most of the time that they're out. Now, some keepers don't keep them with UVB, but I strongly recommend it. That right there is a 10.0. On the other side of the cage, I have an old 5.0, more for light than actual UVB, but it certainly doesn't hurt to provide. If you have the time, if you have the space, by all means, do provide it. It can't harm them. So now that we've covered general care, their enclosure, their substrate, their basking spot temperature, as well as the topic of UVB, now we can finally move on to the fun part and talk about feeding. Feeding time is an event for these guys. They love to eat and they love to chase for their food. They're also very smart when it comes to hunting. You'll see Stella nosing around in that bush up there. I've heard of some even using their tails in between cracks to knock crickets out. And to me, that's absolutely astonishing. To learn that is something that requires some level of brain capacity. That's why I always say monitors are very smart. First, we'll talk about what you can feed them. I personally feed crickets because that's what I have around. If you're fortunate enough to have roaches, by all means, feed them roaches. They're so much healthier than crickets. It's phenomenal. As a treat, you can also feed them eggs, ground turkey, or the occasional pinky mouse. This should be offered maybe twice a month. As you can see right here, this is everything I use to feed the Ackie monitors. I have 3 different kinds of calcium that I use for them. I use the Sticky Tongue Farms Mineral, the outdoor and the indoor. The indoor has D3. Outdoor does not have D3. So the difference between D3 and non-D3 is something to pay attention to. These are also loaded with minerals and other supplements. If you guys are looking for some of this, you can find it online. It's pretty much one of the only calciums that I use, as well as the Reptivite there by Zoomed. That's without D3. D3 calcium should be used once, maybe twice a month. I might use it 3 times a month just because I use it. I don't know. There's no really excuse, but I dust my crickets every day, and that's why I have that yogurt container there. It's for dusting crickets because I feed a lot of crickets at one time. I obviously put in quite a lot of calcium, but you can see all that down there. So now that we understand how to feed and how I feed, and as well as what calciums I use, I'm going to grab the GoPro, mount it up here, and we can watch some crazy feeding time shenanigans. Alright everyone, that wraps up what I had to say about Ackie monitors and their care. I hope everybody has enjoyed and have learned something from this. Whether you decide to keep a red or a yellow Ackie, they're very, very rewarding animals to keep. Remember to like the video if you did in fact enjoy it. That is right below. As well as while you're down there, leave a comment with the word Stella in the comment section just to let me know you made it to the very end of the video. And don't forget to subscribe for more reptile, fish, and plant madness. I hope everybody enjoyed. Be sure to like my Instagram and my Facebook page. They are in the description down below. Just click the expand description link and you'll see them. I hope everybody enjoyed. This is Graphic Phoenix. I'm out of here.